Welcome to the Influence and Inspire podcast, episode 18. And I'm delighted to tell you my guest today is Cherlene Wilson, Chief Executive of Cherlene Wilson Limited. How are you today, Cherlene?
I'm doing well, thank you, Ryan. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Uh,
Good,
uh,
good, good.
Cherlene, you are a personality specialist, a
Yes,
success coach, and author.
yes, I am. I am.
Tell me a bit about what you do as a personality specialist.
Yeah, so as a personality specialist, I really just help people to understand their unique personality blend and how to leverage that in their industry, or whether it's, business, or if it's in relationships, or even within schools as well. Like, I've gone into schools and taught young people about their personality, and also their teachers, so the teachers can actually understand their students a bit better,
Hmm.
and the students, also understanding the teacher better as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, how did you start doing this personality coaching or personality specialism?
Well, it's so interesting to me because when I was in university, I did psychology.
Hmm.
Prior to going into uni, I wanted to be a forensic scientist initially.
Hmm.
And then I went on to thinking, well, no, I think forensic psychology and criminal profiling and all of that would be a lot better.
Yeah.
So I kind of started to go down that route because I was always intrigued by human behavior and the way in which we respond to things, process things, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I didn't quite end up going down that route because it seemed to be more, working with criminals, or just morbid type of situations.
Yeah.
And I love working with people and engaging with them. So I ended up going through coaching. I went down the personality route to
Hmm.
help people to understand themselves better, because
Hmm.
I think self awareness is really, really, really key if we're going to be the best that we can be in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
You're also a personal coach, and
Yes,
you use a blended coaching technique. Can you
yes.
explain what that is?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this because
Hmm.
you have pure coaches,
Yeah.
which is just coaching, basic coaching tools. They take people through SMART, or they take people through Grow,
Hmm.
and that's it. But for me, while I was coaching clients, I found that I couldn't just leave the client wondering, well, what do I do next?
Hmm.
Because the whole basis of coaching is that the client has the answers inside of them.
Yes.
But I would find that clients wouldn't necessarily know. And am I supposed to just leave them just blowing in the wind, like
Hmm.
not knowing? So one of the things that I do is I take the foundation of coaching, but I also bring in, inner healing, which is sometimes people have gone through trauma,
Hmm.
which is causing them to be blocked in making decisions or knowing how to move forward. So I bring that in, and then the personality stuff comes in with that too, and it helps to give like a holistic approach to coaching opposed to just a basic coaching model.
Hmm.
In addition to that, which I really, really love, is when I do something which is called VM360, where we look at 25 different areas of life.
Hmm.
And out of that, it maps things from childhood to present to future. Things that you may have thought about doing in your childhood, childhood dreams,
Hmm.
things that you are naturally gifted for, the thing that you do, and when you do it every single time something incredible happens, you can go
Hmm.
anywhere around the world, and this would just occur.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a powerful thing that you do.
Hmm.
So I look at that with clients, and then what that does is it actually helps them to join the dots on how their life from the beginning,
Yes.
whether they had a great childhood, whether they had a disruptive childhood, to their present circumstance, and to where they want to go, how all of it connects and how all of it makes sense.
Mm. That sounds really,
Hmm.
really interesting.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, it
and
is.
have
It really is.
and have you had good results from that?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. One of the things that was really interesting to me, as and I say this to people all the time: follow your intuition. because I went to coaching academy. I did learn from them. They were fantastic coaching school.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had followed my heart in terms of blending, because I'm just like, no, but I'm not just that. Like I'm also very gifted in this bit and this bit. And what happens if I pour them all together? And how will, baking that cake, what would that do for people that taste it? And I can say that I get so much satisfaction from seeing people who just couldn't make sense of their life. Like, I have this thing where I call it the GPS. Like, let's find out where you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I had two clients where I saw they saw results, and of course, I saw results on the exact same day as they went on their way home from the session. Amazing breakthrough happened in their lives.
Mm.
And there's one lady who's on track to she's on the presidential track for a country in Africa. And her and I, we sat down and she was just like, I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to be doing next. So we did this diagnostic session, which is the GPS session, and we went through that. And she was like, oh my gosh, now I understand why I've been doing all the things that I've been doing. On the way home, and I just said to her, I like to speak life into people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her that I see you, influencing now, not just later on when you're down that right the way down the presidential road, but I see it happening now.
Mm-hmm.
By the time she got home, she had a phone call from somebody who wanted to put her in an influential publication.
Wow.
Like there was blocks that was there in her spirit that
Mm-hmm.
needed to be cleared, and there needed to be clarity in terms of her purpose, because we know that if we align ourselves with who we are, first of all, we have to discover who we are.
Mm-hmm.
But if we align ourselves with who we are and our purpose, doors will automatically open for us because we're in alignment. Some people call it the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're in alignment, period. And things, we don't have to chase after things. They will just come to us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's just one story out of many clients.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, this is a really cool story, actually.
Yep.
I had a client who was very much into photography. She is very much into photography, but she didn't know how to niche it down. So we had the same VM360 session, and she discovered exactly how she needed to niche it. She went from being a good photographer, Instagram, getting clients, to becoming a phenomenal photographer, working with Harrods, what's this? This different hair salons. I forget them now because I don't use them.
Mm-hmm.
Hair salons, Elle magazine, just incredible. She's been flown across the globe to do photography because she was just able to align herself, her profession, with what it was that she was called to do, but also to target her niche market, which she didn't really know at the time.
Wow. That's another great story.
Thank you.
You're an international speaker as well. Where are some of the places you've been asked to talk, and what kind of topics are you asked to speak about?
Yeah, so this is going to go to all the listeners. This is going to go a little bit left because we've been speaking about, personal development in terms of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of internationally speaking, I've spoken in America from the, West Coast to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken in South America, Mexico. I've spoken in Ghana, in Africa. I've also spoken in Jamaica. I've done quite a number of things in, like the Caribbean, in Jamaica, and then Africa, Canada as well. Spoken out there, which has been awesome. And I'm just so open to seeing, what countries I'm going to be going to in the coming years.
Yeah.
But the topic that I usually get asked to speak about, one is about inspiration. People want to be inspired, and they're inspired by my story, where, my story starts out as a 14-year-old girl who was groomed and subsequently raped by someone in a leadership position. And from that place, I had, ended up leaving the faith-based organization that I was a part of, and I became a gang member. And then out of that, I mean, the story is so deep, Ryan. I couldn't possibly go into it now, but the bullet points of the story is that, at 14 there was the abuse,
Yeah.
15 I attempted suicide,
Mhm.
16 I left school with 1 grade, and got arrested.
Mhm.
At that same time, one of the guys in the gang went to jail for murder.
Okay.
That's when things got very, very serious, and I
Yeah.
went back to college. Went to college, obtained some grades, went on to university to do criminology and psychology,
Mhm.
and just really began to just change my life around, turn it right the way around. But in the process of that, the abuse had created some, secondary consequences, and what that looks like for me was a hyperactive sexual past. Like I was engaging in that
Mm.
because in my mind, sex equaled love, so therefore this is what I was just going to do.
Mm.
And I had this love addiction. Like it was just something like I needed to feel whole, to feel like a person who was desired and loved.
Mm.
So a lot of my behavior, my thought processes, and my experiences were very hostile and tainted, and it was just not very nice
Yes.
at all.
Yes.
Um, and we've gone from that whole scenario, early teens into my 20s, to becoming the woman who I am today, where, like I'm a sexual purity advocate. I've
Mhm.
been celibate for 10 years. My mindset's definitely changed. I mean, it had to have if I had a hyperactive sexual past, to now it's just celibacy.
Mhm.
And I really do encourage those who say they want to be celibate or they want to live a celibate lifestyle. I encourage them to come to my events and workshops and
Yeah.
things like that. If that's what they want to live, that's the lifestyle they want to live.
Mm. So, just talking of your celibacy, I was actually going to
Yes,
speak about that. 10 years celibate. That's amazing.
yeah,
And
thank you.
and I was going to ask what triggered the you going into celibacy, but you've kind of said that, you've kind of explained that a bit. But there's obviously a period of time from
Hmm.
what's happened in your childhood to adulthood, and then becoming celibate. Was there anything
Yeah.
else that triggered that for you to actually stop and say, no, this is enough?
I think there's a number of things. The foundational one would be that I'm a woman of faith.
Yes.
So I know that my belief says that there should be no sex before marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But even in my hyperactive sexual times,
Yeah.
I was very much Christian at the same time. So I was still doing it even though I knew I shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't enough, and it was about me understanding my value as
Yeah.
a woman. Like, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And also bringing wholeness to the areas of my heart that were broken, that was giving me permission or license, should I say, to want to sleep
Mm-hmm.
with somebody just to get my value.
Yeah.
So when I got the revelation, like, hey, I don't need to perform for love,
Mm-hmm.
like it's actually okay, that just changed everything for me.
Yes.
That changed everything. But there was also this kind of like realization, whether it's right or wrong or indifferent, that the more and more I had sex with men was the further and further I was pushing my husband away. And that was a desire of my heart. So I had to look at the big picture. And I had to say to myself, if I'm sleeping with these guys, I'm becoming more and more fragmented in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
I'm devaluing myself. And how could, or why would a man want someone who has devalued themselves
Yeah.
in that way?
Yeah.
So I had to change the way that I viewed myself, change my behavior, recalibrate my heart,
Mm-hmm.
and see myself as someone of worth and value, and protect that.
Yeah.
And it was in the realization of it all that I'm like, okay, that I'm a queen, and
Mm-hmm.
queens don't behave like that. Now, I'm not judging anybody else. This is my life.
Mm.
So, for me, this is what it means to be a queen awaiting her king.
Yeah.
So, there's a number of reasons, really. I could go on and on about this, but,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
yeah.
So you've said that people need to come to your workshops if if they are truly serious about becoming celibate. What
Hmm.
what are the first couple of steps you would suggest for someone who wanted to become celibate?
The first thing I would suggest is listen to my podcast. That's one of the first things I
Hey, I'm
would
coming to your
suggest.
podcast in a minute. Hold on a minute. But yes, listen
Okay,
to your
so no,
podcast.
spoiler alert. Yeah. So so that would be one of the first things. But the first thing that I would say to people is understanding your why. Like,
Hmm.
what is the reason why you want to be celibate?
Yeah.
And this is for religious, quote unquote, and non-religious people,
Yeah.
because it's not just people who are of faith
Hmm.
that believe or want to be celibate.
Yeah.
So I would say, what is your why? Like, the why has to be really, really strong.
Hmm.
And it can't, and I say to people, in as much as God is God, if you are of a personal faith,
Hmm.
it has to be more than that, because the human nature says, well, God is a forgiving God, so therefore I'll be all right. I can teeth a little piece over here. I'll be fine,
Yeah.
because I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say, what is your why? And I think the next biggest key is accountability. Who are you accountable to?
Hmm.
And I think as adults, we get to this place where, well, I'm grown. I don't need to tell nobody my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Well, how has that been working out for you?
Mm.
Would be the question.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent advice, Cherlene. Excellent advice.
Thank you.
I suppose let's talk about Purity Talks, your podcast.
Yes.
You've now launched your own podcast. When did it actually launch?
Yes. On the 20th of September.
20th of September, and it's Purity
Yeah.
Talks. So tell us bit more about what your podcast talks about.
Yeah. So Purity Talks, I'm so excited. I feel like I've had a baby, right? I mean, I've my team and I, we speak about it all the time, like, I've had a baby, so because it was a process to actually create that.
Yes.
And it's just me really being candid about my life in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the area of, like, my sexual history,
Yeah.
and also, what I do now that has helped me to live a celibate lifestyle. So, episode 1, why I became celibate, it's very emotional.
Mm.
There's parts in there that I'm crying.
Yeah.
There's, the reason as to why I've done this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one, which is, what do you do when your body's on heat? So how do you manage the
Yeah.
urges?
Yeah.
And but I'm not going to spoil the third one, so people can just jump and go and listen to that. But what's really good about this podcast, which I really, really love, and it's the coach in me,
Mm-hmm.
is that when people go to the website, they can find resources that support the podcast. So there are worksheets that people can download that will walk them through questions that they can ask themselves,
Mm.
to help them get to the place of creating a purity plan.
Yeah.
And purity plans, I think, we hear that thing that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
And in the same way that we may be planning a diet, or, we've got our goals or whatever, we've got our plan for it, we also need to have a plan for purity. And that's what I teach in my workshops, creating purity plans.
Yeah. Sounds excellent.
Thank you.
I took a sneak preview of your podcast. Didn't really get a chance to listen to too much of it, but I will be going back. The titles in themselves are intriguing, and I want to know more myself. So I'll be listening to those, definitely.
Yeah, and also we have Purity Talks Live, which is where we're taking the whole conversation around sexual purity offline. And we're going to have an amazing, amazing lineup of panelists. There's myself, that would be the host. We have Brini Lee. We have a guy called Grady Tomine, Alex and Kalade Mboke. And also we have Charlene Monique. So that's going to be really, really good. It's going to be happening. Tickets can also be found on the puritytalks.com website.
And what date's that going to happen?
That is on Friday, the 17th of November.
Friday, 17th of November. Okay, and they can get tickets online?
Yes.
From your website?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Cherlene, so you're also an author. Let's not forget that. And you wrote a book, 21 Insights for Authentic Living. Yes. So tell us about that book.
Yes, so that was probably my first baby, actually. That was back in January.
Yeah.
So in January, I launched that book. And that book really stemmed from, I have an email community. And I would just email them and just share different things about my process. Like, this is what I'm going through right now. This is how I'm feeling. And it was just me just being authentically me. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize at the time in me doing that, that it was about authenticity until a friend pointed it out and said, like, hey, like the common thread here is authenticity and relationships.
Mm.
So I was like, wow, that's a really good point. So what I did was I just pulled those emails and then I just made them into chapters. And being the coach that I am, each chapter has questions,
Yeah.
for people to reflect on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the books are really powerful because the first chapter speaks about looking at your darkness, and it speaks about, what are the areas that we choose to avoid that are causing us pain through life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the darkness. And I use this analogy about how, like, you could be, everybody's dying to go to the toilet at some point, trying to get their key in the door, and like, you don't turn on the light, and you know how to navigate to the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
but then you forget that there's something in the hallway, and you knock your foot on it and it causes you pain, but you
Yeah.
still limp on to
Yeah.
where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, we go through life navigating in the darkness. We hit our foot on something, which is a trigger. Somebody says something, does something, there's a memory, a smell, something. It triggers us.
Mm-hmm.
And then that causes us pain, but we still limp on in life.
Yeah.
Um, and I just speak about that and how it takes courage to look at our darkness and how we need to do that if we want to evolve as human beings.
Definitely. Definitely. And what's the feedback been like on the book so far?
It's been amazing, honestly. Like, people, call me up, like friends of mine, they will call me up and just say, wow, like, this has really impacted my life. And I feel so empowered to be myself, which is definitely the right answer that I want to hear.
Yes,
That's the
definitely.
feedback I want to hear.
Definitely.
The ones that really grip my heart is when people will message me and say, I read this in one sitting. It's an easy read.
Mm.
Like, I couldn't put it down. I love that one
Yeah.
because it's comical, it's emotional,
Mm-hmm.
it's serious, it's a lot of different types of emotions, because I'm just speaking like I'm speaking to my friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had a lot of feedback saying like it was just really engaging, it's conversational.
Mm-hmm. So, are there any plans to release any other books in the future?
Yes. So I'm well, let's see, I'm about 75% done
Mm-hmm.
with my life story one.
Okay.
um to date. So who knows? I might just, I don't know. We'll see what happens in 2018. But there
Yes.
was a part of that story that I couldn't finish that book initially
Mm-hmm.
because there was a part missing, which was, and I won't go into too much detail now because then
Mm-hmm.
I'll be a spoiler for the book.
Yes.
But on the 2nd of December in 2016, I had a meeting with a man that abused me. And I sat down with him for 2 hours and I went through every single year of my life for the 22 years, of stuff that I'd gone through. I sat down and recorded every single year for him to let him know, this is how your behavior has affected me. This is what it's done to my life. And it was one of the most empowering conversations that I've had personally, where I took my power back and I just said, "Yeah, I'm going to keep it moving. I'm a powerful. I'm free. I'm an overcomer. I'm a thriver."
Mm-hmm.
It was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful conversation. So that part of my story had to be in that book, and that's why I couldn't finish it. So
Right.
we'll see what happens in 2018 with that.
Okay. I mean, confronting your abuser, I think that's an amazing thing to do,
Mm,
and I suppose a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do that. So,
right.
after that's happened, how did that
Hmm.
make you feel after it's happened? Does it give you some kind of release? Does it change the feelings? Does it change any aspect of your life moving forward?
To be really honest, like, I had forgiven him 10 years before.
Mm-hmm.
So, or even longer than that. So the conversation wasn't about, I didn't go into it with an expectation from him that he was going to say sorry
Mm-hmm.
or acknowledge that he did do it. For me, it was about, like, no, I'm going to speak to you
Yeah.
and let you know that I know as an adult to adult, that what you did when I was 14 was actually wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And and that, for me, if it changed anything, it just well, I can't say changed, but it just reaffirmed that I am powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and that the thing that scared me the most in my life was now under my feet.
Yeah.
The thing that immobilized me for many years and caused havoc in my life, relationships,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the thought processes and the behaviors stemmed from that situation.
Yeah.
So the thing that used to immobilize me no longer has that power. So I was able to stand up being powerful and free and happy. And I've got a YouTube video actually, from the evening of when I had that conversation, where I'm
Mm-hmm.
just telling people what happened.
Yeah.
So that's something that people can find online
Okay.
and see that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. And just on a lighter note before we go,
Yes. Hmm.
a little birdie told me that you're in an X Factor commercial. Is that so? Not X Factor. Yeah, X Factor commercial.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. In 2014, I had the opportunity to be one of Mel B's Mighty Army,
Yeah.
and that was just great. Like I loved doing that, because it's, I think, when you see all of it coming together, because there really was not that many people
Yeah.
there,
Mm-hmm.
but it was great to just see what special effects can actually do and all of that. It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun. Got to meet Simon and
Mm-hmm.
Louis, and yeah, it's just stuff that I just do in my spare time, like theater and film, TV,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
Did you try any singing or acting yourself at the time? No.
No,
No.
no, that wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. But I do theater though, so acting for sure.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I love theater. Love
Okay.
theater. Hmm.
So, Cherlene, what's the best way of
Yes.
getting in contact with you for personal coaching, VM360s, all the wonderful things
Hmm.
you've spoken about?
Hmm.
What's the best way of getting in contact with you?
Yeah, so it would be my website, which is charlenewilson.com. Now,
Hmm.
listen, guys, it's not Charlene with an A. It's not CHAR. Please
Yes, don't make that mistake. Don't.
do not make that mistake. You will not find anything. It's CHE, Echo,
Yeah.
CHERLENE, Wilson.com. And from there, you can find purity talks, you can find, the coaching stuff. There's complimentary calls that you can schedule. You can just go on there, schedule it. We can have a chat, see what you need, and see if I can serve you.
Yes.
Oh, and all
Yeah.
of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, everything is just Cherlene Wilson.
Excellent. So, won't have any trouble finding you. That's really
No,
good.
not at all.
All right, Cherlene. Well, it's been inspiring speaking to you, and
Thank you.
I've heard you speak before, so I knew some
Yes.
of the things you were going to talk about, but it
Hmm.
still blows my mind when I hear you talk,
Wow.
and I hope the listeners have got a lot out of this interview as well, and I
Yeah,
hope they'll be
yeah.
looking you up and trying to get
Yes.
information from you and listening to your podcast for definite. Okay,
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
thanks
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much.
It's been excellent, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Ryan.